I'm based in Stockholm and London, and sometimes I've been away from London like 2 weeks. The first thing I do is to check my boiler. The second thing is to watch Match of the Day. I was actually going to play that, but with all music for Mark, I thought I skip it. So maybe should we do a short intro on yourself? We start with you then, Richard.
Hi, good morning everybody. I'm Richard Wormwell. I'm head of innovation at a company called Doc10. So Doc10 are the TV facilities based over at Media City in Salford. So primarily we're a TV facilities business. We have 10 big studio spaces. We make all sorts of content from The Voice to Match of the Day. 1% Club, we've got the BBC Philharmonic Orchestra housed in our building. We've got a big post-production facility. But more recently over the last sort of 5 or 6 years, we've been moving into sort of virtual production workflows and tapping into the games industry and looking at how we can utilise real-time rendering engines, primarily Unreal Engine, in our content delivery workflows.
Hi everyone, I'm Jamie Sefton, MD of Game Republic. We're a games industry network for the north of England, right from Liverpool to Hull, Newcastle to Staffordshire. We've kind of adopted them as northern. And we run events in the north. We bring up platform holders and publishers like Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo to the region to meet our games companies. We also work with universities and colleges, and we have a student showcase that's got hundreds and hundreds of people into the industry. I also work with the Department for Business and Trade on trade missions, and we're about to go to San Francisco in a week and a half to GDC. And we also run boot camps as well for skills training in North Yorkshire and lots of other stuff.
Busy guy.
What's that?
Busy guy.
Yeah, quite busy.
Hi everybody, I'm Alison Lacy. I'm COO of an incredible independent game developer called Radical Forge. I'm also a co-founder and co-chair of Liverpool Game Changers, which we can talk a bit more about, which is a grassroots organisation that's facilitated by Liverpool City Region Combined Authority to support skills in the games industry. I also sit on a cluster board for the Liverpool City Region for digital and creative, and I'm also a newly appointed trustee of the amazing institution that is FACT in Liverpool. If you don't know it, please go and see. It's amazing. So that's me.
Cool. So obviously we're going to talk about the synergies between the sectors today. And I actually wrote a report October 2020 about the best gaming clusters in the world, because we're going to have some Q&A the last 10 minutes. So please take the opportunity, because I think this region is very well positioned for the next couple of years in the industry. So if we kick off with the question, maybe to you first, Jamie, you all can tap in. How do you view the current collaboration between film, TV, and gaming? How would you say?
Yeah, sure. Well, it's certainly better than it was when I first joined Game Republic in about 2008. At that time, Game Republic was part of Screen Yorkshire, Screen Agency. So we had a little bit of collaboration between film, TV, and games on kind of things like screenwriting. You know, there was information about how to write for film, TV, and games. There was a little bit about licensing film and TV properties for games, but that was kind of it, really, back in those days. We're very much in our silos at that point. Now, it's changed dramatically. I mean, you mentioned about Unreal Engine. That's one of the huge things. We share tech now with film and TV, with Unreal Engine, with virtual production, and we've got games companies in our network that are doing previs and VFX for Hollywood, and you know, there's stuff like that happening now. We've got Netflix, who you're always wondering who's going to be the Netflix for games. Turns out it was Netflix. So they've got their own games store now. You know, there's lots more crossover. You've seen the dramatic kind of increase of games to TV licenses with Last of Us and Fallout, and Super Mario Brothers movie was one of the biggest animations of all time. So, and there's loads of stuff happening with licenses for games as well. So like, Drawn Code right here in Liverpool did the Taskmaster VR. So there's tons and tons more crossover happening, and I think that's really exciting. I think for creative industries, we've come out of our silos a little bit more.
Yeah. No, but also, as you mentioned, I mean, both Amazon Prime and Netflix are looking for gaming IPs for sure. And I think not everybody knows that Mandalorian, the successful TV episode, was partly created by Unreal. Anything you want to say, Alison, on the collaboration? Because I always been impressed about the film and TV in UK, and I think UK is the world leading in narrative. I think gaming has something to learn there, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment. The games industry is only about, 40 years old, I would say. So we're still quite young as a sector, and we've not necessarily always been seen as a positive use of a person's time. And we're still struggling with that hangover. So whereas film and TV is widely respected, funded in all sorts of different ways through governments for a long time globally, we've always been a bit on the outside. And we kind of like being on the outside a little bit, to be fair. But we need to start thinking differently, because I think audiences now don't put their entertainment into these sector boxes that we do. They're just consuming entertainment, and they're increasingly less interested in the platform even. Yeah. So we need to start thinking a bit more like that. Why do we watch TV? Why do we go to the cinema? Why do we go to an art gallery? Why do we play a video game? We're looking for experiences. We're looking to laugh, cry, escape reality, learn something, and we've got all these options. So if we as creators start thinking less about the platform we're on and more about our audience who wants to feel something, basically, and to pivot, I would like to see us thinking more about that and talking to each other, because film directors and there's incredible TV producers understand how to communicate with audiences so well. They've refined that skill over so long, and I feel in games we can start to tap into that more.
It's a very good point, and I was at DICE in Vegas a few weeks ago, and I thought part of the gaming industry is actually a bit confused because the monetization models are all over the place. Richard, if you look at, I looked at all the things you've been doing in your company, and you looked at e-sport, you've been early on virtual reality. With your strategy and background, I mean, in broadcasting, and how do you plan to tap more into the gaming audience in the next couple of years? Because, I mean, there's so much happening now with the tech and the need for collaboration.
I just want to pick on something that Alison said.
Please do.
Yeah. But that is the audience change. That's the big shift, really. So the sort of millennial audience are the first digitally native audience. They've grown up with social media, with touchscreen mobile phones, with social platforms, interactive television, sort of Twitch and things like this. So that demographic is the audience that we're looking to lean into. Everybody always wants to get the younger audiences, because they're the people that fund you for a long period of time.
And they have money nowadays.
And they have money, yeah, so they're sort of more disposable income than me. Certainly my kids seem to have more money than I do. So, how do we make content, think about content creation for that audience, and where are those audiences sitting? And how do we find the right IPs and be able to deliver content across multiple platforms so that we're capturing from different angles? So I think that's one of the sort of key things that we're really interested in. It's a slow progress, in all honesty. We're primarily TV. We've been doing sort of unscripted TV, and I've been in that sector for sort of 25, 30 years. And that's primarily what we do in the studios business. But where is that crossover?
But I think it's actually good that's been a slow process, because if you have moved too fast, for example, into live operation, interactive show, you probably have lost money. So I think it's smart to take it step by step, actually.
Yeah, but sorry.
No, carry on.
There's sort of a bit of a strategy of how we're trying to get there. And the first thing that we're looking at is how we move from a sort of 2D workflows into 3D workflows. We're already creating a lot of environments in 3D using Unreal and sort of 3D modeling tools. But how do we go from that complete sort of pipeline from not only creating them in the virtual space, but tracking talent in spaces, using motion capture, and then opening up that level of interaction. So we're sort of moving from passive broadcast experiences into interactive sort of consumer-focused experiences,
That
and then
is
look at
so
the
interesting.
distribution. Yeah.
Yeah, it always used to frustrate me. It actually still frustrates me that certainly the BBC should be representing games, because there's millions of people playing games, and there's literally no programs about games at all on the BBC, and it frustrates me. And I was thinking, we should get the BBC to do it in ITV, and then it was like, well, we don't actually need it, because we've got YouTube, we've got Twitch, we've got all these new platforms where you just, millions of people, billions of people are watching games being played. And it's like, I think that's where the mainstream TV has kind of missed out on that, actually. And I think that you're right that you're kind of looking at that audience, because they've moved off kind of traditional TV onto watching Twitch, and where you can actively interact with creators.
What we used to call a second screen is the kid's first screen, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
So do you think, the buzzword metaverse, do you think we can see interactive TV shows around the metaverse or Fortnite ecosystem in the future? In the next 2-3 years? Yes, sounds like you know something.
We're already starting to have conversations with certainly from the TV side, TV production companies that are interested. Again, it goes back to the audience. It's like, how do they get those audiences, and how do they create content that's multi-platform? So, the sort of multiverse things do exist. They're already out there. We're not waiting for somebody to go, oh, that's what it is. Fortnite Islands or Roblox or Minecraft, all those sort of platforms are really the sort of first sort of proper sort of multiverse sort of experiences. And how can you start to attach different IPs to them, or take the IP from the game and produce entertainment content from them?
Yeah, like think like a flywheel, or...
Yeah, like a flywheel, yeah.
Alison, anything you want to chip in?
I think I would just also say that whilst we're talking about how it currently is, so much of our audience are playing the same 6-8 games. And we could look at the cinema landscape and say the same thing. We're seeing sequel after sequel, the same IP being rolled out over and over again. And I have to think that this is partially or perhaps totally caused by how we're funded. And I'm sorry, but creative ideas and really interesting creative content isn't going to come out of the minds of venture capitalists. But they are currently in control of all of the mainstream creative media that you'll see through games in particular, but also through cinema.
I really like you said that, and we haven't practiced this, because I think, again, when I look at all the global trends, if you look into the cost of programmers in Vietnam or Malaysia, but it's so much the creative skill, the talent that we have in UK and obviously in this region. So I agree with that needs to be fixed. So how do you think about the transferable skills in this sector? Because I'm coming into the local region later on, but do you think that's going to be easier with the transferable skills between film, TV, and gaming, even board gaming?
I think it's going to continue to. I think we're going to converge more and more as time goes on. And the interesting thing about skills is that it's hard for us to predict the technical skills we might need, because it's changing all the time. So actually, I think the best bet is to focus on our understanding that we make great creative content in teams together. So the better you are at working with others, the better you're going to do, regardless of what sector you're in. So yes, we need to talk to each other more as sectors. We need to share our technologies more. We need to work together more. We need to be good at working together, and we need to prepare young people for the fact that they might start out doing one thing, but then end up doing 15 other things after that. So the foundational skills and almost a kind of, how do we teach the resilience of an acceptance that this is a high-paced, constantly changing sector, or creative sectors, and to be cool with that and be comfortable with that, and that's difficult. But I think that's how we'll arm ourselves with this ability to adapt, to push the boundaries, because that's how we'll make world-leading content ultimately.
Exactly. No, I love that. And as I said, I quite often talk to universities about that. How do they position themselves? And if we just glimpse into that report that I did, I mean, that's a long time ago when even Vancouver was leading, and now they're switching off the lights. So there's a lot of things happening there. But if we look into that report also said informal gathering is so important, sharing the skills. So how do you think this region should attract talent, all of you, in the next few years? And I think also a follow-up question to you, Alison, directly. Why did Avalanche Studios, who had offices at that time in New York, Montreal, Stockholm, why did they choose Liverpool? Because that was also mentioned a lot in the Swedish Council in London, because that was a big thing.
Yeah.
So 2 questions there, sorry.
2 questions. I'll start with the last question, and then you'll have to remind me what the first question was. You choose, it's because of people. So Avalanche chose Liverpool because of the people that they wanted to hire, the talent that was here and that is here. And that just grows. Like, the more studios that come here, the bigger the ecosystem becomes. The more diverse the talent is, the more interesting it is to be here. So that was at the crux. And then beyond that, they looked a little bit further around the region and the north in general. And they really appreciated the vibe of Liverpool. It was mentioned earlier this morning about Liverpool having an edge. And I think there's something there. There's a sort of a challenging view here of, like, we don't necessarily accept that it has to be like this. We've got our own ideas. And that's very exciting and interesting when you're trying to build a creative organization. And the first question was?
No, I think that yeah, no, but you also, I think, I mean, you also should answer that, because, I mean, you are in so many areas of tech. So how do you think because it's both attracting talent to this region, but also making them sure they're staying. Because big cities today have, obviously, they have a talent, of course, talent factory, but there is a lot of jumping around between jobs. You see that in Stockholm with Spotify, Klarna, so the retention is a bit tough. So how do you see that, Richard, with the future attractiveness of talent?
I think there's a couple of things, really. So the academic piece, I think, is massive. I think I sit on industry advisory boards with a couple of universities to try and inform their programs of how they bring the talent through in the first instance.
And they move slow.
And they're really slow. They're really slow.
But they're designed to move slow.
Yes. But, you know, when you've got a TV production course with studios doing virtual production on one floor of a building and a games course on the second floor, and they're not talking to each other, that's not an ideal situation for what we need as an industry. So I think us leaning back into the universities and trying to inform them of the direction of travel of the industry is super important. And then the other thing in terms of retention, I guess, is a difficult one. I was guilty of this. I was born in the north. Moved down to the south for 15 years before I came back up. But basically, because that's where the jobs in broadcast were. If I wanted to work in high-end broadcast, I needed to be in London. So thankfully, you know, the BBC decided to relocate, and they've got the amazing facilities up in Salford. But it's that retention piece. So there's, I think there's stuff that needs to be done at a government level in terms of making sure that regional quotas are actually money spent in the regions and not just slightly outside the M25, and, you know, counting as region.
Very good point. You have the best football in this region.
Yeah,
as
but
well.
you know, that needs to come from sort of senior government, really, and sort of particularly we're always sort of, I say, lobbying, you know, trying to encourage more tax breaks around unscripted things, and more tax breaks for the gaming sector, because I know that the film industry has proved to be super successful over the last 10 or 15 years because of the tax credits that they're getting into that sector, and now they're seeing that again in sort of into the VFX world, and there's growth happening in those spaces. But we need to replicate those sort of models in sort of unscripted broadcast and the game sectors.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things we can do in the north. I mean, one of the things at Game Republic that I'm just passionate about is getting people to realise in the north what we have. You know, it's like we've got a games weekend we're doing this weekend in Wakefield. We're having game talks, and it's free to the public. And it's basically to talk to parents to say, look, we've got an amazing industry here. And to kids, you know, you can have a brilliant career here in the north. You know, 55% of games companies are based outside of London and the South East, which is, compared with other creative industries, I think is huge. You don't have to be in London anymore now to make a game and release it. And part of what we do at Game Republic is trying to, we call it insourcing. So basically we work with our members to work with other members in Game Republic. So we keep all the wealth and the IP and everything within the region, and we help each other. When times are bad, and it's been very tough in the industry in the last couple of years, we've got companies like Radical Forge that reach out to companies that are struggling and help them and give them work. And I just think it's amazing.
Wow.
And that's a community that we have in the North. We help each other, we talk to each other, we care about the industry that we've got here because we think it's brilliant and we think this is the best place to be making games, and we're just very passionate about it. Yeah. And we just got to get that message across to people that you don't have to go elsewhere. Why would you? Why would you want to go to London?
You can do more. You can do more on that. No, but I read about Alison's background. Obviously, you're a team player. Everywhere you go, you sorted out Avalanche. Bruce is quite wild and very creative guy. So you're coming in there, structure the team. But I think it's also about traveling, because another point in this report was you have to be out there with sea-level contacts. Canada was first in the world with the best infrastructure for entertainment. Montreal, Vancouver did all the special effects in Hollywood long time ago. Canada was the first with support, government grants to gaming, etc. Obviously now they're struggling for other reasons. But I think what UK and also the local areas here, the political office, etc., has to be out more and see, and also attract more people to the region. I was really pleased to be invited here because there is it's a great tradition in this region, which not everybody knows.
Yeah, the Liverpool games industry goes back, decades to to the 80s, and same with the games industry in Yorkshire and in Manchester with Ocean. The industry has been grew out of the kind of home computer games in the 80s, and we've just had a proud tradition of making fantastic games here in the North, and it's just built on that. The number of people I meet here in Liverpool that have been through Sony, it's just. And it's these big companies that kind of like the foundation, and many small companies spring out of that.
Yeah, and just to speak to the point that it has been quite tough, and I think it remains quite tough. But this is the time when the best of innovation can emerge. Yeah. And just also to speak to the point about, I got Jackie, who's sitting down there, described me earlier as the Epstein of Radical Forge. Right, it was just a little bit weird. I don't think I'm going to get them in suits. We'll try. But it's about bringing a little bit more professionalism in that supports us, because we're not being a very sustainable industry. We keep going up and down, losing amazing staff, and then it's great when new things emerge from that. I'm all for that, but we've also got to be a little bit more mindful and sensible that if you're going to retain your talent, they just want a really good place to work, and they want to know that they've got a future and they don't have to worry they're going to lose their job. Yeah. And they want to live in a great place. So the economic improvement of our regions is really important. It's no good dropping down, sucking up all the talent as an investor, and then when things get a bit tough, you shut it down and you move away. We're here for the long term, and we want to actually have an impact on the local communities. We want to be a lever for social mobility. We want to be truly inclusive, because by doing that, we're going to get these amazing creative stories and storytellers and viewpoints and perspectives on the world, which help us be more empathetic to each other. So being good business leaders, running our business as well as we can, getting the support and investment that we need from the places that other industries get it, and taking some responsibility, which is what we're trying to do in Game Changers, which is a group of all the game developers in the Liverpool City region getting together with the local authority and with other interested parties to think about how do we take some responsibility for the skills issues we have. You mentioned young talent coming into the industry, and that is where the focus usually is. But actually, there's some statistics out there saying that about half of the creative sector doesn't provide any training for its staff.
Yeah,
So
no,
we just expect people to figure this out. We expect them to come to us with all the skills, and we expect them to deliver on projects and do a great job and figure it all out for themselves, and that's not sensible.
No, but also your point on the investment, like venture capital also, I think it's very important to early stage. Do you want an active investor or do you want a passive investor? And I think sometimes it's actually good to have a passive investor. I would assume BBC are that in a positive way, so you are in the driving seat. I think that's so important. And also access to private money in the whole ecosystem in this region. So if we touch, metaverse was one buzzword. Another one which we talk is AI, Gen AI, which is obviously a quite small piece because it's in the bottom is the machine learning. What would you say about the Gen AI and what's happening there in the collaboration piece? I mean, Jamie, you talked also about the ethical AI because you're thinking about the art and the liability there.
Yeah.
I think this region is great in Q&A, which obviously, and then you have the moderation part, which is also safety and governance, etc.
Yeah.
What would you say if you all chip in a little bit on the...
Well, I mean, in games, we've obviously been working with AI since Pac-Man, you know, it's like, but the generative AI stuff, I think, is interesting. I think if done incorrectly, it could be a threat to people, but I think that we've got some good examples of unbelievably ethical AI. So, for example, we've got a company that sprung out of the University of York called Pixel Research, and they helped Revolution Software with their latest title, Broken Sword, upscale their art to 4K using AI, and they used it within the assets of Revolution. So it didn't go out to the internet and grab people's artwork for nothing. You know, it used the artwork within Revolution to upscale their art. So that's a good example, and they're very passionate about ethical AI. They don't want to be going out and stealing people's work because, you know, like it was interesting that we had the campaign last week, which didn't feature games, but we we care passionately about protecting creators and not having a government that would just hand over all the creative assets and things from our brilliant creators to these AI companies. Why would we do that? You know, we should be protecting creators. It's their business, and you know, it's so we just have to be careful about how we use this generative AI. But I think, like anything else, it could be a good tool. But like in games, it's kind of the audience doesn't particularly like AI-generated stuff. There's always, you know, pretty much, like with, you know, a lot of the kind of blockchain stuff that was out a couple of years ago, and there's a bit of a backlash against it. And like on Steam, you know, the main PC...
It's good, actually.
Yeah. On Steam, there's a PC platform. It makes developers show on the platform which games have been using AI. And there was a news story the other day that there's a website set up to show games that have been using AI, and it could be like you're almost like blacklisted if you're using it. So I think that the audience isn't quite ready for it, and I think that we have to be very careful because, you know, we have amazing creative people and we don't want to put them out of jobs.
I think that there's two things for me. I've been working with AI for about 6 or 7 years in the broadcast space. The first project was a government R&D project where we were looking at using Dota 2, the data from Dota 2 matches, to predict or to drive narrative. So Dota 2, if anybody knows, it's a super complicated game, and there's a lot of nuance in it, a lot of playable characters, and it's really hard to sort of get your head around it. But how do you empower an esports commentator to drive good narrative around that format? And that's whether that's a sort of newbie watching it or a seasoned pro watching it. And how do you pick out those traits? So we were training an AI on previous Dota games, and we had the support of Riot to do this. So that was a really interesting thing. But it was about not using AI as a generative tool, but it was about how can we use it as a tool to empower the storytelling. And more recently, we were looking at how we can use AI to help us in our virtual production pipelines. And what that sort of really led me to think about is the sort of ethical use and the policies and the governance and the sort of legal documentations that we need to have in place to make sure that we are protecting the talent, the on-screen talent, the performers, and we're not scraping big data sets. So we're now training our own AI model where we put in the talent at the forefront of those contractual agreements. So they know what's happening with their data, they know what it's been used for, and they can look to monetize that. So the first thing is, you know, it is the Wild West. The copyright laws are like unbelievable. The sort of levels of sort of people that have scraped people for information. So I really wouldn't touch it in a commercial sense at all, using AI in a sort of generative way. And the other thing that has come out is that the control application to deliver generative AI isn't there yet. There's not the fidelity or the flexibility to be able to generate continual AI output that has sort of what we would call temporal consistency, so one frame looking the same as the next frame. So until those two things are solved, I'm not touching generative AI. We sort of use it occasionally for sort of putting pitch documents together and things like this, where you sort of just want to get some ideas down onto a piece of paper as a creative tool, but certainly not in a commercial world. We wouldn't look at it.
I like that. That's a very good answer.
I can only really echo the sentiments that there's such a need for regulation and for us to be putting our human beings first and thinking about if this is a tool, if we're making tools, they should serve us, not the other way around. Exactly. And large language models as well, I'm sure I'm speaking to the converted here, but don't forget that it's the artifice of intelligence. It's not actually intelligent. And its sources are coming from the internet. So again, we're not getting a diverse range of opinions there, are we? Yeah, so remember it's... Yeah, exactly. so that's just something to bear in mind. And yeah, I'd say in games, we have used it for good for a long time, and I hope that we carry on doing that.
Yeah.
Mm. So I would say you can choose two subjects here. I was brought in by Warner Bros. When you had that windows of all the kind of theatrical, etc. And then Netflix come in and sort of changed the scene, which a lot of people were worried from the beginning, but it actually led to more local productions. Do you think that in gaming that's also going to be a bit of a shift? Because you see Fortnite, for example, you see Disney and Lego going into that infrastructure, which actually create more local games from Fortnite or Roblox. It's a bit like a two-sided question. Who want to start?
Well, I mean, like for Fortnite, there's Unreal Engine for Fortnite, and you can release your game within Fortnite. One of our companies, Red Kite Games, did that, and they released their game within Fortnite. And the advantage of that is, of course, as soon as you press go, the game is available on every single platform immediately,
exactly.
Everywhere that Fortnite is played. So same goes for Roblox. You know, if you release things in Roblox, and so it's another string to our bow. You know, for our game developers that are looking for markets and places to sell their games and their content. It's just another string to your bow.
Simplicity and hopefully discoverability.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, we get all sorts of... I mean, the big thing at the moment with games, as well as investment, is discoverability, because there are so many games being released. I think I saw a figure earlier this week. It was something like 18,000 games were released on Steam last year, which is just unbelievable. It's like, how on earth are you going to get discovered? But our brilliant developers are finding more ways to get noticed. And one of our developers, Tony Warriner, is releasing his new game on the ZX Spectrum from the 1980s, because the Spectrum was re-released recently, and there's a passionate community of sort of a few tens of thousands of people that love the Spectrum. Old people. Yeah, let's be honest, old people who play on the Spectrum. But he can release that game in a boxed copy and sell a couple of, tens of thousands of units and start there and then work his way up to PlayStation 5. So there are all sorts of ways and different ways of approaching this. But I think UAE FN and Roblox is just another string to the bow for developers to get their content out, basically.
I'm just going on a slight tangent, I think, really. But I just want to talk a little bit about convergent media and the sort of critical needs that the game sector, or I feel the game sector and the broadcast sector have both got challenges. So, without question, the broadcast sector in terms of sort of appointment to view televisions in decline. We've been feeling that for a number of years. You know, everybody sort of binge watches box sets on Netflix or Prime or whatever, but sort of, you know, that appointment to view TV market is sort of failing, and that's because of the shift in the audience. And although the games market is rising and we want to be, the broadcast space wants to play in that area, I think what the games industry lacks is some of the, like you said, it's quite a young industry, in all honesty, compared to sort of film and TV. So some of the techniques and storytelling sort of nuances that have come through that film and broadcast space, now when you're starting to look at people like Epic putting on events, or you know, you've got sort of passive content being consumed within games. So games are no longer just for play. Games are social experiences. They're fashion retailers.
Very good.
Yeah.
It's not only gaming.
Yeah, it's the hangouts. You know, they're places where people want to go and be entertained, and whether that's playing a game or whether that's watching a bit of content within that game, that you know, that's that sort of convergence. So how do we, as two sectors that have been fairly siloed in recent years, come together to make sure that we're both empowering each other to be able to make content that sits well on multiple platforms around similar IPs. So there's a real sort of joining together of these sectors, I think. And that's, you know, really what I wanted to sort of come here and talk about today, is how do we carry on that momentum and making sure that we're not working in silos, and the North and the Northwest is super strong across all these sectors, and how do we sort of keep that message going. And I think as that continues to develop, then we'll see further investment from central government bringing funds into the region to empower it even further.
Do you want to say something? Otherwise, I have a question to you.
I just think that's really exciting, though, as a future landscape for work and creative endeavour. This idea that there's so much untapped opportunity if we just work together. And I think, like we saw the people that, you know, with Steve here this morning talking about, there is an engagement from our local authorities. They are there, you know, facilitating us in the games sector in Liverpool especially, and we just need to connect up.
It's funny, when I spent probably 30% of my time networking, and when I reach out to these guys and say, hey, should we have a quick call? All of you, bam, 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 replied on Monday, and the passion reached you. We are smiling, and I can see the passion in your work. What part do you enjoy most of your current work, if you would say very quick, because we're going into Q&A, but what do you think is most enjoyable in your current role? Because I can see that you really like it, what you're currently doing.
I just like working with the team and building the team and looking, you know, I focus on innovation. So looking at new technologies and how that can be deployed, and the excitement of, you know, finding something really complicated, some really complicated technology, or a set of, or a technology stack, you know, of complicated things that the team put together, and you get some amazing output from it. You know, whether there's a commercial use case for that is debatable in some sense, but you know, that trajectory, that roadmap of how, you know, we're sort of leaning into computer-based, computer vision sort of talent tracking, so we don't have to put people in motion capture suits any longer, and you can put them on set in a costume that they can perform in and feel more comfortable in. But you know, that's the levels of technology that you need to get to make the performance look natural without having all of the tech around people. And when you get it working and it looks great, it's like these light bulb moments going on, and creative ideas are then spawned out of those technology achievements. So that's the bit that really makes me
And I can see you smiling all the time, because entertainment is about fun. Quite often I saw early, like Web3, can you look at this pitch? Can you look at, I'm like, is it fun?
Yeah, I mean, the games industry is enormous fun. I mean, you could probably make 2-3 times more if you're in banking, but I mean, who wants to work in a bank? You know, it's like games is just so much fun, you know, and it's the people. It's the people. Yeah. That's the reason why I'm still here after like 20 odd years, is because they're just so wonderful, creative individuals and teams. And I get a buzz out of seeing new games companies get their games signed. You know, we had an event last November, Gamma.io in Wakefield, and we had like 50 new games from right across the north. And a couple of those games were signed by publishers as a result of our event. And to get that news, I was just so chuffed, you know. It's just like, yes, brilliant. And those wins are just so exciting, and that's the reason that's why I get out of bed in the morning, is to get success for our company.
I can see that.
Oh, yeah, I love it. That's why I do it.
I saw your post about the government perception, but we take that in the networking later. Alison, how about you? Because you're the team builder.
Yeah, it is about teams for me, 100%. And my first job in the games industry was as a producer, and I didn't know anything about how games were made. It looked like there was like maybe some fairy dust that got sprinkled over something. And so the first time I sat and sort of observed really highly skilled but very diverse ways of thinking being mashed together to try to solve a problem, where there was a real need to solve that problem really quickly and as efficiently as possible, and people had completely different ideas about what was important and how to achieve it, and sitting together and figuring it out, and just seeing how people's brains work differently is never not fascinating to me.
Good. I think, Fiona, it's time for Q&A now, I would assume, and I hope we get some question also about other parts of the world, maybe not far as Arctic Circle, but where should we start? Question from the audience. There we go.
Hello, myself is Omer. I mean, you did touch on the blockchain aspect, and I think it is very important that we actually touch that subject a little bit more, given where the financial situation is going in a way across the globe. And yeah, it's a very dark picture when we see at it, where it's coming from, understandable. But with the gaming and gaming in itself as an industry, I believe the understanding of the blockchain, where I agree with Alison, where the IPs are held by the VCs. But the blockchain might allow the VCs to be coming after rather than coming against. So that's just, it's either a question or a suggestion. Thank you.
I was media trained by Nokia to never say that is a good question. But it is a good question. I'm actually looking into blockchain a lot at the moment, but do any one of you want to chip in
I think
first?
when I said blockchain, we've got games companies that are using blockchain, and they keep it very under the radar, and they use it for like selling items and things like that within games. I think it was more the perception of things like NFTs. They did a lot of damage to the reputation of that sort of thing. It seemed like it was just kind of a Wild West sort of thing. And I think people who play games realise what's going on. They realise when there's a kind of grift going on with things like that. And I think that there was just a bit of a bad rep with stuff like that.
Yeah,
the
perception about NFTs and the word Web3 was a bit like, yeah.
Yeah, it's creeping back. I mean, I went to an event in London in January, and there was quite a lot of Web3 stuff. And it's interesting. It's like we'll always be open to potential business opportunities and things at Game Republic, but it's just like the perception of NFTs and that sort of thing is all, it's all cowboys.
But I think this upcoming generation, they expect nothing less than blockchain, because you also have new categories like skill-based gaming or play to win, because what a lot of esport companies tried was to have a platform which is not fully legal actually in many countries. And I think with blockchain you have a safe technology. Even if I don't like that industry, the gambling, it's incredibly regulated in most regions. So it's clearly coming in as a technology and platform. And I think it's coming now a little bit faster than a lot of people thought. Anything you want to... Are you happy with that kind of feedback? I'm happy to talk more also after the networking, because that's one of my focus, going to GDC in San Francisco together with these guys. Other question?
Hello, Jonathan Butters from Butters Innovation. Got a little stool over here. On the title of this presentation, I think it's very interesting to reflect that a lot of the skills which came into the digital sector that you're in actually came from sort of my sector, industrial design. I mean, one example was Jonathan Holmes from Milky Tea. Is he here today?
He is.
Oh, hello, Jonathan. I taught him.
He's a great guy.
I know. It's wonderful. But what I'd be interested in, because I also work in the music sector, grassroots jazz, and I think we would really benefit from your skills coming into the live music sector, because obviously the careers of musicians are really hampered by the likes of the S word, I won't say it. But I think we can be really smart and merge some of these technologies, and so the whole idea of performance and live could come together. So how can we do that? Is there a forum where these maybe slightly different worlds can come together, learn from each other, and be greater than the sum of the parts?
I love that. And chip in, please. So important.
My wife's a struggling musician that gets the regular 38 pence paycheck from Spotify every quarter. So, I totally get that. This afternoon, I'm actually meeting with the guys from John Moores University that recently secured the Music Futures grant as part of the UKRI cluster programme. So there's a huge push, particularly in the clusters, in the UK clusters for the music sector. Again, it goes back to that sort of convergence piece and performances in different platforms. You're seeing people like Eminem and Snoop Dogg, playing a gig on Fortnite Island and getting millions of hits. That again, what I'm really fearful of is that becomes similar to the sort of music streaming platforms where there becomes a platform and an outreach for the talent to get onto there, but they're not monetized through it, because it just decimates the industry, and particularly the music sector is filled with produced artists. And even now you don't get bands, you just get singer-songwriters or solo performers, because it's more cost effective for the music label to ship one person around the world than it is to ship a band around the world. So, the whole model of that music space, I think, I'm in fear of that being replicated in the sort of game convergent media space as this develops. So, working with government and the clusters, and particularly the recent Co-Star Labs that have come online. So the National Co-Star Labs is a big one in Pinewood opening this year, £52 million investment in research around creative sector. There's one in Dublin, Belfast and York.
Wakefield, Production Park,
yeah.
Co-Star, so look into that, because there's a lot of funding going that way at the moment for music, live music.
Definitely in the music space. I think they've got something, I can't remember the number, it's about either 4 or 7 million I think they've got in devolved funds to push out back into the sector to look for interesting ideas and research and IP. So those things are all starting to come online at the moment. The lab's all launched. I was in Dundee, or Fundy as I like to call it, last week for the launch of the real-time lab up there. So super exciting stuff, but I think we need to make sure that we don't fall into that same trap that the music sector's fallen into.
Yeah, in Game Republic, we have musicians and composers and companies that make music and soundtracks for games and film, TV and everything else, like Pit Stop Productions, based in Barnsley, doing some amazing stuff. We also regularly talk to all the different regions about what they're doing. I was chatting the other day to the North East about Generator, which is the music network up in the North East. And I mean, we're creative people, so we love, I love music. Like, one of my, obviously the biggest band in the world's from Liverpool, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. Big Frankie fan, but we love our music, and it's we love all these creative industries. When I first got into games journalism, I met people who were roadies and also, people come into the industry from everywhere.
And it's more to do there, because I think it's still figuring out the secret sauce, how to monetize within music and games. And there are some initiative, actually a UK company are looking into that, reflection of music. I think that's actually it for now. We're going to be around for networking both during lunch and after. Please don't be shy to ask questions. And I think we should give a big applause for this super creative, hardworking panel. Thank you, guys.